Good morning, class 12. In accountancy class, today's our topic is accounting ratio, and the second category of accounting ratio, that is solvency ratio. In the solvency ratio, basically solvency ratio is to be calculated to find out the financial position of the business, whether the business are able to pay their long-term debts or not. For that purpose, the solvency ratio are to be calculated. Basically, four types of ratios are included in solvency ratio. Number one, debt equity ratio. Number two, total assets to debt ratio. Number three, proprietary ratio. And number four, interest coverage ratio. So here in this video, we are doing the three ratios, that is debt equity ratio, total assets to debt ratio, and proprietary ratio. So first of all, the concept is debt equity ratio. And the formula of debt equity ratio is debt upon equity. Debt means long-term debts are included in it, and equity means total worth, net worth, or the shareholder fund. And the ideal debt equity ratio is 2:1. So first of all, how can we find out the debt? Debt means long-term borrowing plus long-term provision. Debt includes long-term borrowing plus long-term provision. And the item which are included in debt is debenture, mortgage loan, bank loan, loan from financial institutions, public deposits or bonds. The item which are included in debts are debentures, mortgage loan, bank loan, loan from financial institutions, public deposits and bonds. And the debt also can be calculated total debts minus current liability. Now the concept of equity. Equity means shareholder fund, and shareholder fund can be found out by two ways. Number one, the shareholder fund can be calculated share capital plus reserves and surplus. Share capital plus reserves and surplus, and equity share capital plus preference share capital plus capital reserve plus general reserve plus security premium प्लस क्रेडिट बैलेंस ऑफ P&L अकाउंट. तो अगर स्टेटमेंट में रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस कंबाइंड दिया हुआ तो हमें इन आइटम्स को सेपरेटली ऐड करने की नीड नहीं है, लेकिन अगर रिजर्व एंड सरप्लस का हेडिंग नहीं है तो हम इन सब आइटम को सेपरेटली ऐड करेंगे. इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल प्लस रिजर्व प्रेफरेंस शेयर कैपिटल प्लस कैपिटल रिजर्व प्लस जनरल रिजर्व प्लस सिक्योरिटी प्रीमियम प्लस क्रेडिट बैलेंस ऑफ P&L अकाउंट. क्रेडिट बैलेंस ऑफ P&L अकाउंट इज ए प्रॉफिट. सो अगर P&L अकाउंट का प्रॉफिट है तो इसमें प्लस कर देंगे, और अगर लॉस है तो इट विल बी डिडक्टेड. और द सेकेंड मेथड टू फाइंड आउट द शेयर होल्डर फंड इज नॉन करंट एसेट्स प्लस करंट एसेट्स माइनस करंट लाइबिलिटी माइनस नॉन करंट लाइबिलिटी. नॉन करंट एसेट्स प्लस करंट एसेट्स माइनस करंट लाइबिलिटी minus non-current liability, and the ideal debt equity ratio is 2:1. Now the second ratio, that is total assets to debt ratio, and the formula for find out the total assets to debt ratio is total assets upon long term debts. long term debts अभी हमने किया, क्या क्या आइटम इंक्लूड होती है long term debts में, and the total assets can be find out. Total assets equal to tangible fixed assets plus intangible assets, tangible assets plus intangible assets plus non-current investment plus current assets. So these are the formula to calculate the total assets, and the ideal total debt ratio is 1:1. Right? Then the next is proprietary ratio. And the formula to find out the proprietary ratio is equity upon total assets. अभी हमने total assets का formula भी किया और इक्विटी का फार्मूला भी किया, and the proprietary ratio also be shown in the percentage. So these three ratio can be understood very well with an example and here is the illustration number 39. In this question we have to find out all the three ratio: debt equity ratio, total assets to debt ratio and proprietary ratio. And the information is equity share capital, preference share capital, general reserve, P&L account, debentures, trade payable and outstanding expenses are given. So debentures are given. Debenture will be debentures is included in the long term debt. It means the total long term debt is 8% debenture with rupees 3 lakh, and with this item we have to find out all the three ratio. So first of all is in example number 39 we have to find out debt equity ratio, and the formula for debt equity ratio is debt upon equity. And in the debt, in the statement, the long-term debt is given 8% debenture with rupees 3 lakh, and equity can be find out. Equity matlab shareholder fund, and shareholder fund can be find out with this example is equity share capital plus preference share capital plus general reserve plus credit balance of P&L account. It means 3 lakh plus 1 lakh plus 1 lakh 80,000 plus 1 lakh 20,000. So the total amount is 7 lakh for the equity shareholder fund, and the formula is debt upon equity. It means 3 lakh upon 7 lakh, and the percentage ratio is 0.43 ratio 1. So we can say that the ideal debt equity ratio is 2:1, but in this company the ratio is 0.43:1. It means the debt is less, so there is a sound financial position of the company. Then the second ratio is total assets to debt ratio. Formula for calculation of total assets to debt ratio is total assets upon debt, right? Debt हमें given है इस क्वेश्चन में 3 लाख रुपीज, 8% डिवेंचर, 8% डिवेंचर ही डेप्ट में इंक्लूड होंगे, और टोटल एसेट्स हम फाइंड आउट कर सकते हैं. टोटल एसेट्स, देयर इज नथिंग मेंशन इन दिस क्वेश्चन फॉर द लायबिलिटी साइड. लायबिलिटी साइड की कोई एसेट साइड की कोई आइटम हमारे पास इस क्वेश्चन में मेंशन नहीं है, तो हम इक्विटी एंड लायबिलिटी साइड से टोटल एसेट्स फाइंड आउट कर सकते हैं. इक्विटी एंड लायबिलिटी साइड का टोटल एसेट्स के इक्विवेलेंट होता है, सो वी कैन फाइंड आउट द टोटल एसेट्स इक्वल टू इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल प्लस प्रेफरेंस शेयर कैपिटल प्लस जनरल रिजर्व प्लस P&L प्लस डिबेंचर्स प्लस ट्रेड पेबल प्लस आउटस्टैंडिंग एक्सपेंसेस. तो टोटल ऑफ इक्विटी एंड लायबिलिटी साइड हमारी टोटल एसेट्स के इक्विवेलेंट होगी. इट मींस 3 लाख प्लस 1 लाख प्लस 1 lakh 80,000 प्लस 1 lakh 20,000 प्लस 3 lakh डिबेंचर्स प्लस 1 lakh 60 ट्रेड पेबल प्लस 40,000 आउटस्टैंडिंग एक्सपेंसेस. सो टोटल हमारे एसेट्स आएंगे 12 lakh. And the formula to find out the total assets to debt ratio is total assets upon debt. It means 12 lakh upon 3 lakh. The ratio is 4:1. Now we have to find out the third ratio. Third ratio is proprietary ratio, and the formula to find out the proprietary ratio is equity upon total assets. हमने equity already find out किया हुआ है 7 lakh rupees से, और total assets भी find out किया हुआ है 12 lakh rupees से. So the proprietary ratio equal to 7 lakh upon 12 lakh. It means 0.58:1. और proprietary ratio को हम percentage में भी show कर सकते हैं. Then the proprietary ratio is 58.33%. So student, these were the three ratios of second category solvency ratio, जिसमें हमने किया debt equity, total assets to debt और proprietary ratio. Right? So with this example we can understood all the three ratio, and the interest coverage ratio can be explained in the next video. Thank you.